All right, welcome to the Murfreesboro City Council meeting. It is July 11th. It's 11:30. I have our prayer and our pledge, if you will, if you'll bow with me, and then we'll stand for the pledge. Father, thank you for this chance we get to be here today. Lord, I thank you for each member who's here. Lord, that you give us wisdom to make the decisions that are best for our city. Lord, I thank you for all those things that are spoken and unspoken. We love you and we praise you. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, for those who are watching this, we made the decision the last the last workshop meeting that we were going to have these televised, and so these are normally more of workshop type items, although it is a regular meeting, but it's a much more casual setting and more of a casual meeting. So, but we're excited that these are being televised. And thank you for our production team back there for taking care of this. All right, we'll move to our, actually, Aaron, do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
Anything? Okay. All right. Do we have any? We'll move to action items. We've got the Reeves-Rogers Administration Edition construction contract.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. I'm here on behalf of city staff to seek approval for the contract for the Administration Edition to Reeves-Rogers Elementary School and reallocation of county shared bond proceeds. The project will consist of a 4,000 square foot administration addition, 600 square feet of existing building renovations, a new exterior entrance canopy, and aesthetic improvements to the existing building. These modifications will provide a more secure access entry point to the school and provide upgrades for administration and student support. Romac Incorporated submitted the lowest responsible bid in the amount of $2,795,800. This includes an owner's contingency of $50,000 to be used at the owner's discretion. The FY24 CIP allocated $2 million of county shared bond proceeds for the project. A reallocation of $795,800 county shared bond proceeds is requested to fully fund the project. Council priorities served: maintain public safety. New addition will increase school security by creating a more controlled access to the campus. I thank you for your time, and I can answer any questions at this time.
No questions. Glad to see you guys doing this. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell? Aye. Vice Mayor Shacklet? Aye. Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright? Aye. Mayor McFarland?
Mayor,
Aye.
just
Yes.
one moment. Just tomorrow at 9:30, I'm glad the vote went the way it did, because tomorrow at 9:30, there's a ribbon cutting out on Greenland Drive at Reeves-Rogers. So everybody's invited to come to the groundbreaking for this. And it has been a long time coming, so everybody can celebrate.
Awesome. All right, let's move to item 2. Thank you, Mr. Elliott. HVAC roof window replacement contract for 316 Robert Rose Drive.
Hello, I'm Valerie Smith, for those of you that may not have met me.
Hey, Valerie, if you don't mind, will you pull that mic closer to you? Thank you. Perfect.
Part of staff.
You're part of stuff.
I
That's
am.
that's what my back sounds like when I get up in the morning. So,
Mine not quite yet, maybe my knees. First item I will present is for the HVAC roof and window replacement at our new administration building at 316 Robert Rose. The building was built in 2005. We purchased the building in 2022, and prior to the purchase, the only really inspection on the building was for structural, to make sure it was structurally sound. After we purchased the building, we had CMTA inspect the HVAC units, the ductwork, the ventilation, and it was recommended, or they recommended to replace 12 of the 13 HVAC units. So that has been in the works for a while. During the construction and renovation of the building, we also noticed that there were probably more than half of the windows were either non-functioning. If you opened them, there were several of the springs broke. They wouldn't close back. And it became apparent that we really should probably replace the windows. And then the roof is, 18 to, let's see, if I could add today, 18 years old. So we lumped those into a contract and bid it out for the replacement of all of those and received bids. We only received one responsive bidder out of 18 interested bidders, and the amount of their project is $728,089. So we are asking for approval with that. That includes an add alternate and a deductive alternate, as well as a 10% owner's contingency.
I just have a process question, has nothing to do with the actual vote. But why did we not do this before we bought the property, where do these inspections, where we could have had a negotiation factor to buy the property cheaper with $750,000 worth of repairs needed?
Councilman Wright, so we did know that going into this that we were going to have to replace the roof and the HVAC units. So that was part of, we chose to do that after the actual interior renovation.
Okay.
So I will say this, the estimate was not $728,000, about half of that. So we did think we knew we were going to do it, but we were looking at we thought somewhere around $375,000 for that cost. The windows, you're correct, absolutely right. We should have done a deeper dive inspection into the condition of those windows. That was an unexpected expense. So moving forward, it won't happen again. We're going to have a preliminary phase walkthrough and hire someone out to come in, a professional to come in and do a deeper inspection of the appurtenances of the facility.
Okay, thank you.
I will say this, though, and I know it's a lot of money, but it is still way cheaper than building new right now.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
So I bet by the time this is said and done, we're still $4 or $5 million to the good on what it would cost us to build a new property right now, if we could find land to build property.
If no further comments, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Ms. Overwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gales Harris? Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright? Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, we'll move to Salem, item 3, Salem Highway Phase 3 sewer easement offers. Valerie.
Yes, the department has been working with TDOT on this Phase 3 of Salem Highway, which extends from Cason Lane to just west of Veterans Parkway. There were several properties along that route. One is at the convenience store at the corner of Armstrong Valley and Salem Highway, and then there are 2 other properties west of Veterans that, with the road widening, TDOT was going to be taking their septic fields and needed them to connect to sewer. We are partnering with them and have designed the sewer extensions to those properties, in which TDOT will pay for, but they could not, per their policies, could not acquire the easements. We had several of the easements donated. I believe you've got an attachment in your packet of a spreadsheet that kind of specifies which easements we've acquired and those that are donated and have agreed to donate. However, there are a few that requested payment for those easements. The cost of the easements, with a 10% added for voluntary conveyance, is $32,400. So we would ask for approval up to that 10% administrative settlement, and should the property owners not agree, we request the ability for legal to move forward with condemnation for those easements. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
If there are none, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris? Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet? Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Thank you, Valerie. All right, let's move to retail liquor store certificates of compliance annual report.
This is our annual report to council indicating that our population estimate has increased from 162,398 to 165,430. This opens the door for an additional certificate of compliance for an additional liquor store. Y'all don't have to vote. This is just information letting you know about that.
Aaron,
Questions, Roman's here.
I guess a question, a previous workshop, we had a discussion, I thought about going to some sort of lottery system, because previously, I guess, there was 2 or 3 applicants literally racing to the line, bumping and knocking each other, and are we going to that, or?
I'm going to let Roman speak to that.
You're the guy that holds the tape at the finish line when they cross it, or?
Yeah, we're trying to use whatever they're using in the Tour de France right now, that laser-guided camera to make sure they get there. Yeah, you're correct, Councilman. That was discussed at one of the previous workshops. I think we've actually discussed it at a couple of different workshops, one actually before you came onto the council. At the very first time we discussed it, I think it ended up getting put on the back burner because we didn't realize the competitive nature that would come along with these. So it came back up again last year as part of, if I remember correctly, a broader, I don't want to call it necessarily a cleanup ordinance, but there were some broader amendments to the alcohol ordinance that we wanted to make at that time. And that ordinance ended up being deferred due to some questions regarding certificates of compliance and I believe the expiration dates. Since that time, there have been no new updates in the law, and I don't think anything to change the ABC's really non-answer regarding whether or not an expiration date would be enforced at their level. That being said, we have discussed the idea of a lottery. Clarksville uses one right now that if that was something that the council was interested in, we could craft something similar to bring back to a future workshop. We wouldn't be able to have it ready in time for the release of this new certificate because it's going to be released, I guess, right after this.
I think it's
August
going to be
1?
released in August.
Okay, in August. So that said, like I said, probably wouldn't have time to get the lottery system in place and get it noticed and have the time for the ordinance to take effect. But we could look into that for next year and for years going forward, if that's something that the council's interested in.
It's up to the other council members. I was just asking to see, where we're at, because we discussed it, and I thought that it was kind of imminent if we're going to do that, but we put it on the back burner. But I think that's fair. It creates people running over each other, when they're trying to get one. I get it. They're probably very coveted, for lack of a better term.
They are, and with the limited number, they can be seen as assets.
Would it be possible that at a future workshop, maybe really put that as a workshop item and then go through the whole process of where we are right now, how many we have outstanding, what the process is for someone to apply? We had a discussion last time also about people who were getting the permits and they were giving a location that they have to get the permit, but then they were holding those permits and not using them. So it would be good to find out how long that it's applicable that somebody can hold one without, in other words, buying a permit and holding competition from coming because they're holding the permit. So can we do that in a workshop and really get into all of it and talk about it?
Sure. I expect that we could have that ready for the August workshop.
Can we pause the granting of this one that's available? Can we pause that granting until we get this process in place?
I think when this first came up a couple of years ago, we did discuss the idea or the possibility of a moratorium to put on place temporarily. That would have to come through what's known as the prior pending ordinance doctrine. So there would have to be an ordinance amendment on the table in order for us to put a moratorium in place. So that's something that Adam and I can talk about and try to get back with the council on.
Would that be possible?
I mean, if it's, Aaron, you said it's in August 1st?
August 1st, so we would have 2 more meetings.
Well, I mean, we could certainly have it, it may be a crunch to get it on the agenda for the 18th, but we could certainly have it, we could have something for council to consider on the 25th.
Is it a 2-reading ordinance?
It would be a 2-reading ordinance, but if it passed on first reading, that would be, I think that would still fall within the ordinance pending.
So
Yeah,
is
I
there
think-
is there someone who already is wanting to get one in August?
Yes.
Okay. If they've gone through the process that we already have in place right now, just my opinion, it's not the best thing in the world to all of a sudden stop that when they've gone through everything that they're supposed to go through, and then all of a sudden we say, hey, 2 weeks before we're supposed to issue it, we're going to not issue it. But maybe, in my opinion, after August 1st, it may be good to put a moratorium until we get all of the things worked through. I'm just putting myself in their shoes. If you're going through and you've gone through all the application process and then we put a moratorium on before that, that doesn't seem very fair. But it's just me.
I agree. I agree.
There's not an actual application pending,
Okay.
but there's someone who we expect will apply when the slot becomes open.
But
That's
the
that's
application
different.
process couldn't begin, though, until April 1st.
Yeah, I'm still worried that there's like a level of detrimental reliance, though, you know, if they've already went under contract on a property or something, I don't know.
There may be more than one person that's willing to put in an application, just there's not a permit available. So there may be more than one person that's willing to put one in.
And that's the issue.
Yeah.
So,
Historically, Aaron, how many people do apply? 1 or 2? Or is it always just one person when these do come open?
Well, you're saying that actually apply or in the race to get to the finish line?
yeah, I think last year there were 2 in a race.
Yeah, last year there were 2, and right now Leslie only knows of 1 that has expressed interest, and I think that was the second. It was the person who did not get the, was second in line to get the certificate last time.
I know of a second other than that person.
Okay.
I agree with Shane, though. If the process is the way it is, we shouldn't change the process right now.
I mean, somebody just has to get in better shape to be able to run quicker. Saying that kid,
Pilates or something right
yeah,
now.
I mean, stretching, camping out at City Hall.
Be like camping up for a concert.
That's right. It'd be I think it's a great conversation that we need to have for everything else. We just need, and again, maybe this is just my governmental side, throwing out the moratorium word in the action of a moratorium without really thoughtfully going through and understanding what we're doing is really, you set a pretty dangerous precedent if you're going to do a moratorium and you do that in a 2-week time frame. I mean, that's really something it took us, we talked years about our sewer capacity before we did a moratorium on our sewer capacity to give everybody sort of a notice on that. But
Well, we had the discussion in a workshop at least once and maybe twice prior to this as far as realizing that there needs to be some address of the fairness of this. So there's such a limited number that we're allowing. I don't know that it's not more responsible thing to do to say, let's get our process. Because actually, last year, we said we're going to have something to address this. And we don't have something to address this.
Yeah.
So now, the only reason we're within 2 weeks of this is because we just haven't moved forward with giving direction from the council to say, do something, our definitive, whether you understood, that was what we were directing you to do. So I mean, it doesn't mean, if somebody's made some plans, that it might be a month or two that you've delayed them, but the process is you will give everybody the opportunity to put something in the works to be able to do that. I don't think it's wrong for us to slow this process down and get it right, something that appears to be fair, and then that's something that can be going forward. And just because if we only know that there's one person that's willing to, there may be, like Sean was saying, there may be others that are interested too, and it will be another year before they would have an opportunity to do this again. So, I don't know. I'm not so concerned that we're doing it 2 weeks before this as far as we're going to get it right, a fair way of addressing this particular one application that's going to be available for folks. Because what you're doing basically is tilting the scales to the one person. You're saying everything is for that one person that has expressed some interest. You're kind of putting your thumb on the scale saying, okay, he at least said he wanted to do something, or she wanted to do something. So I think the fairest thing to do is to just get this process in place that addresses the fairness of this, and then anybody that wants to is at the same place. They're at the same point in the process.
Can we afford to allocate an hour of our upcoming retreat to this, maybe, or 30 minutes?
Yes, we could. I mean, that's, we're looking at probably the end of October, though. This last 2 weeks of October is probably where we're looking at the retreat, however.
What's our requirement on, what, is it one per every 5,000 in residence? Is that what we have, or is it
Aaron, do you remember what the ratio is? Is it 5,000?
I think it is.
one per 5,000?
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, if we're going to have the overall discussion, I think it's part, maybe we look at that requirement that we don't, that may be a discussion that we talk about it as well. Is there are no other there's no other and I'm not advocating to say that we have more, but I don't know of any other businesses inside our city that we regulate that way. I mean, we're not saying that, hey, it's always a joke on Dear Murfreesboro, but, how many Mexican restaurants are we going to have that open up? Or, if we had the opportunity to limit things, we would limit mattress stores and check cashing places that are, and we just don't do that. Liquor stores are, check cashing, we did write a thing years ago. Liquor stores are a little different because they're regulated by the state. But there's an overall discussion that maybe we look at, that if we only have one or two are available, did we set that threshold too high? I don't know.
And we can update that, because going back to the very first time we discussed this, we did go over what different ratios would look like based on the population that we had, I think, back in 2020. And some of the ways that different cities do it, because I think back 40 or 50 years ago, it used to be sort of a hard number cap. Most cities have gone away from that because it's very hard to say that that's tied to anything substantial and it's not an arbitrary number. So most cities now will either have it tied to population or area size. Some cities have no cap, and they let the market decide.
But the other thing that's changed since 2020 when we voted on this is, liquor in grocery stores has changed that. I mean, not liquor, but basically wine and beer in grocery stores has changed as well. So, that really, if you start adding in grocery stores that sell wine now, then that number is significantly more than what we have. But anyway.
And I will say, if council is thinking of changing that ratio, that is from a legislative standpoint, that's far easier to do and could be done much more expeditiously than the lottery system, if that's something that council wanted to do.
I'm looking at everyone, See what y'all want to do.
I don't mind looking at the ratio. I'd like to know what other comparable cities do.
We can update our research.
You're not trying to change it today, are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Around like-
No.
I
Well,
need
I mean,
to do
that's
some more
what-
research.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I feel, just me, I feel uncomfortable having a moratorium discussion today when we haven't really talked about having that discussion and the possible ramifications that would come with that, and directing you guys to write an ordinance for a moratorium when, you know, we need to look at all the ratios, look at how many are available, look at how many haven't been used. Are there locations that are we have permits that are not under development, or vacant piece of land that someone's just holding the land for the permit? Because I don't think that's fair. That maybe that's something we address, and that would open up, I think in our thing, there's 6 or 7 that are just sort of sitting out there.
Yes, and I'll say this to the council too, that the statute, one of the requirements for the certificate of compliance is that they have quote-unquote secured a location. There's been very little guidance either from the ABC or from courts as far as what that provision means. So I think it's probably open to interpretation. Does it mean they have secured vacant land? Have they secured a building with a C of O? That can be something else that we bring up at the workshop to
Yeah,
help
I
walk
think it'd be
through that.
important to have that discussion. You know, in the construction world, if you get a permit, that permit's only good for a certain amount of time. You know, it expires. So I think that would be something that if you have a liquor or a liquor store, the license or certificate, then you get that in 2020 and you've not proceeded with that, then you either have to come back to this body for a renewal or you lose it. And then it comes, because that's 7 that are just sitting out there right now. I mean, there's one, and I hope that they get the project going. There's one on Sulphur Springs in Northfield that's sat out there for a couple of years now that the project's not started. I mean, I remember when that came through planning and came through the council, but those are projects that you want to make sure are just being held. Anyway.
Does the ordinance say, I mean, at least in what we have before us, it says that the city recorder will begin to accept applications for additional openings for certificate of compliance, August 1st. What does that, I mean, does that entail that once we accept an application, that doesn't mean it's granted at that point, does it? Or
No, you're correct. That means that on August 1st at 8 a.m., they are eligible to physically submit their application at the finance window. At that point, then staff will review that application to see if it's a complete application. We consider that it's not ready to move on for council to consider it for approval until it is a complete application. So if somebody comes in and they haven't filled it out completely, or if they're missing documentation, we don't consider that to be complete. We'll hand it back to them and say, you need X, Y, and Z items in here.
So my point is this, is if we accept application and we don't act on it, and we are still working on whatever whether it's the number that are permitted, or if it's the process that we grant them. It seems like if we haven't changed anything into what we're existing to do, it's just that as they move through the process, could we not just say, we're not granting that one right now under the existing ordinance, only one would be available, but we don't grant that one until we get this process cleaned up as to what we're doing, because it ends up, if we change the percentages, you might be granting more than one. So it seems like to me we don't have to really do anything other than y'all continue to give us information as to if it's changing the percentages or if it's changing the process to a lottery. I mean, it doesn't really mean that we have to put a moratorium on it. We can receive the applications, but just not act on them.
How is this advertised that there's one available? Is it just word of mouth that somebody in the industry goes, okay, there's one, let's all run and race? Or is there something put in the newspaper? How is it advertised that there's one available?
Leslie, do you know how that's done? It's just word of mouth.
That may be another way to solve it right there, because if it's just word of mouth, then the only people that are hearing it by the telephone game are the ones that know that there's even one available.
So does anyone want to do anything right now, or just get more information for y'all to bring back to us at the next meeting, or what does everyone want to do?
Get more information.
I think I want more information, but I'm kind of a free market guy. So some of this, the free market kind of takes care of if everything's on the table and everybody knows what's going on. I don't like the idea of a non-advertised, word-of-mouth, single-shot permit that you only know about it if you know about it. That's not very transparent.
And to Aaron's point too, I think probably
The
way-
agenda.
the way it
would
is right now,
probably-
the agenda and the announcement at this workshop meeting is the notice.
Is the notice.
Let's just get more information and move on from there.
Okay. We can do it.
I'm fine. I'd just say, I'd kind of say, don't necessarily grant that application until we clean some of this up and get a clearer direction from council to staff as to how do we approve that application? That would be my thought, is that we just don't think that after August 1st, if you're the only one that's made the application, you're the one that's going to get
Can we get this information by like the 18th or 25th?
Yes, we can update you.
Adam, can we legally do that?
That's
Say that, so
We legally, if someone applies and they followed what we have in place currently, can we legally not act on it?
They haven't applied yet.
I'm just saying if they do after August 1st. And we haven't changed.
No, I think we would have to act under the ordinance absent, some moratorium. Having said that, like if after August 1st, well, between, whether before or after August 1st, if you change that ratio, that new ratio goes into effect 15 days after the passage of the ordinance on second reading. So if that was what council wanted to do, it could potentially only affect someone for
15 days.
a couple weeks.
Okay.
And if we went to no ratio, just totally free market, these people that are sitting on permits that are just basically using them as an asset, that asset goes down dramatically, and it could create for them to release their permits back also.
I think that's a fair assessment. You're creating a permit system creates market power, and if you eliminate that
Market power goes away.
that permit system, the market power goes away.
Right. And the free market then works.
I mean, the odds are, even if you had an unlimited permitting system right now, it's not like you're going to have 10 or 12 people who are all of a sudden going to go out and
Correct.
start, just because the demand's not there.
Right.
But
To make money.
But in essence, what we've done with the permitting system or the certificate system, by limiting those permits, you've created artificial demand because someone just sits on the permit. So this one person who wants to come in may be a viable customer that wants to build a project, but they really can't because someone else is holding them. And I would probably, I don't have this information, but I would bet that some people who are already in the liquor business snatch up those existing certificates just so other people can't.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so, I mean, what we've done is really created a closed system for people who are already in the system that they can, again, I'm not saying that this is the case, but that system can be manipulated to where you are keeping out competition. And, I mean, and to be clear, a lot of these businesses that we're talking about are all small business owners. It's not like that we have a lot of chains in Tennessee. So it's really, it's a much larger discussion. So what'd be great, if you'll get us that information maybe for the next meeting.
We could have something to present at the
Yeah.
18th.
Okay.
Sure.
So It says here in the memorandum, it says the city recorder will be accepting applications for the additional opening on August 1st. Where does it say that we must act upon it like the next day? Or is there a 30-day period of time and then you make that decision?
It's in the
What does it
ordinance.
specifically say, like when you must act and
It's in-
close off applications?
It's in the ordinance, Austin.
I think,
Well, what
I
is
think
it,
it's
though?
also in the state statute that there's a 60-day shot clock.
Yes, so it does reference TCA Section 57-3-208, the ordinance does. This is failure to grant or deny an application for retail liquor certificate compliance within 60 days of the city recorder's receipt of the application shall be deemed a granting of the certificate.
It's a 60-day clock.
Yes.
Okay.
So that comes from state law.
Okay.
And it was just incorporated into the ordinance.
So is everyone good? More information at the next meeting? The council can make a determination at the next meeting if there needs to be action, and that could be including any and all avenues are open. So if you have any questions between now and the next meeting about the process, check with Aaron, Roman, or Adam, and that'll give some good information.
Okay.
All right, let's move. Thank
Mayor,
you.
Mayor, did
Yes.
you mean the 18th meeting coming up next Thursday or the August workshop?
I would think that if we're going to have the discussion before the August 1st period, it'd be the next meeting.
We can certainly, we'll have something, all the information might not be in the agenda packet, but we will certainly get that information to council members before the meeting.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure it gets on the agenda.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Roman. All right, we'll move to the Public Records Request Annual Report. Are there any questions on that? Aaron?
No question.
No questions.
All right. Do we have a motion?
This is just information.
All right, we'll move to, you've got some fiscal year '24 budget amendments. Darren?
This is just the annual report of the city manager approved budget amendments that occurred throughout the year,
Okay.
last year. Y'all don't have to vote on this either.
All right,
Those were Craig's.
okay.
Yeah. So no vote needed there.
All right, we'll move to any questions on the CIP transfers.
Again, this is just the monthly report of transfers that have occurred. I do want to ask council, I also bring CIP reallocations, and oftentimes those come with contracts to council where the project budget may have been a little under on what we borrowed. We typically fund that through either projects that are stalled or where we have budget savings on another project or out of contingency funds. I would like council to maybe consider allowing us to maybe set a threshold of 50,000 and above comes back to council for a specific vote, and anything under 50, the city manager could approve and just be included as an information, sort of like the city manager budget amendments, just to kind of help administratively keep things moving. We wouldn't do a new project that council didn't know about or anything like that with the funds. It's typically cleanup. At the end of a project, you get kind of straggling bills that come in, and maybe funds have already been reallocated out of it, things like that.
Is everyone okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
All right. Any questions on the dashboard? All right, seeing none, we'll move to board and commission appointments. You've got one recommendation for the Historic Zoning Commission, Mike Panisi.
Move for approval.
Second.
Michael did a good job.
He will.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater? Ms. Skills Harris? Mr. Maxwell? Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright? Mayor McFarland?
Aye. I don't see any licensing. Okay. And I don't see any statements.
I don't either, so I think we're good there.
Any other business from staff?
Yes.
Adam?
Last Friday, I sent council members a draft of a new code of ethics ordinance. It's a revised version of something that I'd sent to you all in the past. I'm going to start by, I'm glad I sent it to you because I apologize. Because of a technical snafu on my part, I forgot the last step of getting it on the council agenda and didn't upload it to our web application. So that's why it's coming to you before as other business. My plan is to bring the ordinance back on the 18th on first reading for a vote, and then a vote, hopefully a vote on the 25th. But I wanted to first give you some highlights of the ordinance and why I think it's important to revise it, or revise the city's ethics policies. Currently, the city's ethical standards for city officials and employees are spread across multiple sections of the employee handbook. So the first thing that this does is it brings it into one specific location, and it's not in the employee handbook, it's in the city code, which is the general practice that other cities, municipalities in Tennessee do. They put it in the code, not in a policy manual. The second thing is to provide some greater clarity as to some of the standards. The way those policies are written now, it creates a lot of gray areas, and that becomes difficult, one, in terms of people interpreting, officials or employees, well, what am I allowed, what I'm not allowed to do? And so that by creating more clarity and providing more specificity, this ordinance would make that easier for employees and officials to understand. It also makes it easier for the person who is providing guidance on ethics issues, which would primarily be the city attorney, that there is something specific set forth there, and it's not so much of a gray area where I or my successor is trying to interpret things. There's always going to be a certain level of interpretation because these are fact specific, but this would make that process easier. The other thing is that, and I'm not going to be pulling any punches on this, is that there's a notable weakness in the city's existing policies, and that is that there is not a well-defined procedure for investigating ethics complaints. In addition, there's no clear mechanism for handling complaints against city officials. If there are complaints against city employees, that would be investigated through the disciplinary process, just like any other disciplinary issue that you might have with an employee. But with city officials, the conflict of interest policy and the ethical standards policy provide no guidance as to how to proceed if a complaint is filed against someone. In putting these this ordinance together, I drew on a variety of sources. I looked at other municipalities across Tennessee, most specifically Metro Nashville, Franklin, Clarksville, and Knoxville. I also looked at the MTAS's Model Code of Ethics. It's my recommendation that with respect to complaints filed against elected or appointed officials, as well as those employees that are appointed by City Council, that City Council establish an ethics commission whose responsibility is to investigate and then make a recommendation to City Council as to what should be done to remedy an ethical violation. This makes it easier than putting that responsibility on the city attorney to investigate and provide a recommendation to City Council, because while on the one hand, if it's someone, let's say on Planning Commission or BZA or Parks and Rec Commission, they're not the city attorney's employer. but it would put the person investigating in a position where there was a conflict of interest if the complaint was against a member of city council. And so this removes the city attorney from that position, would put that on an ethics commission, and the ethics commission under the ordinance could and should retain outside legal counsel if they thought it was necessary to investigate and provide legal advice with respect to that complaint. That's the process that's used in just about every other city in Tennessee. In an earlier draft of this, I proposed having the city's existing disciplinary review board serve as the ethics commission. However, in going back and doing some more research, I realized there's part in our charter that says members of the disciplinary review board cannot serve on any other board, committee, commission of the city. So that idea kind of died on the vine. So that's my proposal. Have set it out here, shared it with you. Some people have had a couple of questions about a couple of different things that would like to be addressed. One would be how to handle a situation where a city official, would a city official be barred from doing business with the city? And I think we can provide some greater specificity on that. And I think there's a distinction here. If you have someone on a city board who sells widgets, and the city needs widgets, and they put out an invitation to bid for widgets, and this person on the city board, their business puts in a bid, complies with the invitation to bid procedures, and they happen to submit the lowest bid, I don't think they should be precluded from doing business for the city so long as they comply with the procedure and they are the lowest bidder. I think it becomes much more complicated if you're dealing with something that's a professional service, whether engineer, architect, lawyer, accountant, auditor, because then those selections processes are based on qualification and allow a lot more discretion than just, hey, Joe Smith submitted the lowest bid for widgets. So I think I can provide some greater clarity in this ordinance between now and when I bring it back on next Thursday.
I have a couple of questions. For instance, in the past, we have situations come up, items on our agenda, and Mayor McFarland has, he said, I'm going to back out of the voting. I'm going to abstain. And so has Councilman Wright. So, that has always been okay. But what you're saying is possibly that, in the past, let's say we passed it. So what difference does it make when they abstain when it passes anyway? Can someone try to sue them for that?
For something they did in the past?
If something comes up.
If we abstain, we did what we were supposed to do.
If you abstain, whether you disclose the potential conflict or not, you have not participated in that deliberative process and action, the discussion, or the vote on that matter. That's not an ethics violation.
Yeah, I was just saying to protect them. It passes anyway, so could somebody come, even though they abstain, and say, hey, it passed anyway, so.
This is more or less if we would have voted something we would profit on, and then down the road, they go, oh, you voted on something you profited on. This goes after that.
Yeah, but no, it would not. If the council member recused themselves from the deliberations and the vote, then they've done they've complied with the both current policy and the proposed policy, and it would not in any way invalidate the vote by the rest of council.
So I look at the council as moving targets anyway, a little different than an employee complaint. because, we get complaints from the public, whereas the employees, they're kind of in a circle where they can get their complaints. I was trying to think this through. I maybe should have thought it through before I started talking. I'm just looking at, we are automatic moving targets, so let's say conflict of interest, and we are found to be guilty of that. Does that committee that's going to be formed recommend dismissal, or?
It could be several different, they could recommend all kinds of different stuff. It would depend on the severity.
So I think Madeline's asking procedurally, say, it's not a bidding situation and the widgets are sold to the city, which happened a few years ago to the county, say the widgets are sold to the city, what happens next?
So the widgets are sold to, my example or a different example?
Just in general.
If
I make widgets and sell them to the city and make millions and millions of dollars.
If you participated in the vote on the matter, then that would be a violation. Say it was a $100,000 contract, it came to the city council to approve, and you participated in the vote, that would be an ethics violation. If someone filed a complaint, it would go to the Ethics Commission. I think pretty quickly the ethics, in this example, the Ethics Commission would be like, yeah, that violates the plain letter of the ethics code. They would then come back with a statement to city council saying, we find that this violated the ethics code. So they're just the findings of fact.
Right.
If you think about it this way, the Ethics Commission is the jury, city council is the judge. So that the Ethics Commission could say, yes, we think, or the Ethics Commission say, yes, we think this in our opinion, preponderance of the evidence shows that this was an ethics violation. It then would go to city council as the judge to determine what to do with that factual finding.
Okay, that's if I sell widgets to the city and I don't vote. If I abstain / recuse myself, what if if I do vote? What if I don't vote?
If you don't vote, then nothing happens. Then it's not, then I would think.
Okay.
I would think in that scenario, the Ethics Commission would find, and I'll say, if I were on the Ethics Commission and the council member abstained, did not vote on the contract, and also disclosed, hey, this is my company, and the rest of the council said, yeah, this was the lowest bidder, we're going to award the contract, that's not an ethics violation.
Well, do you think it's a problem that we don't have any explanation behind our abstention? Because I abstain on a lot of stuff on Planning Commission that I don't own. I have nothing to. I abstained one time because it was my neighborhood, even though it
Right.
didn't affect me at all. I just felt better abstaining.
But you abstained.
Right, but I'm saying, should we?
We could certainly put in something if there were, we're just talking about this specific scenario.
Yes.
Where someone's doing business with the city.
I just feel like we abstain for various different reasons. Like, it's very broad why
Right.
someone might choose to abstain.
Yeah.
You may have, as an attorney or a realtor or whatever, we have confidentiality, fiduciary responsibility. So we abstain. If we say who our client is, that's a confidentiality violation.
Sure.
We could just abstain.
But if I own the widget company,
If you own the widget company, you need to disclose.
but there's nothing in our ordinance or in this that
Yeah.
requires them to disclose it? That's my question. Do we need to set standards
I
for
go
disclosure?
back and visit that because this ordinance did not specifically deal with the scenario that was presented to me by another council member and ask that question. I can put in and say that it's okay for regardless of how council votes on a matter, it is the responsibility of the council member who had that conflict and is recusing to say, I am recusing because I own this business.
So let me just ask you a hypothetical.
Sure.
Okay. I decide to quit my job. I'm going to open up a painting company.
Yep.
Because I like to paint. It's fun. Gets me away from PowerPoints and Excel spreadsheets that Darren Gore loves and stuff like that. But I'm now a painter.
Yeah.
Okay? Something comes before us on council, and I vote on it. Builder developer comes along and says, Austin, I want you to paint all these houses for me. And I do. What happens to me if somebody files an ethics complaint? It says Mr. Maxwell's profiting off of voting on something that he's painting for that builder or developer, versus me saying, you know what, I'm going to recuse myself because maybe down the road a builder or developer is going to ask me to paint these houses. I think what I'm asking is kind of some clear-cut examples so that going forward we kind of know. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Adam.
that specific situation is actually addressed in section 2-322, which is non-city work and employment. And that says, so there is, what has been clear is if there is, you already have a business relationship with someone that is, who's asking authorization or approval from city council. What this section 2-322, a subsection there that says an official may not provide services for compensation to a person or entity in connection with a contract, development, project, or other matter that received approval for the city for a period of 1 year from such approval if the official voted for or otherwise participated in deliberations related to the contract, development, project, or other matter. So it would, I'll start this way. The way to avoid having this provision come into play is at the time, if you think this is a project that you might want to bid on or be a subcontractor on to do the painting, you would say, look, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote. You don't have to explain why.
You're safe if you.
You're safe if you get the business.
Yourself.
Yes.
So in that case, though, and I say this jokingly, I've had a history of any time that there's been anything that has been anywhere close to where there would be a conflict of interest, I will abstain. Right. But, in a case where, for example, someone owns a title company.
Whoa, this feels personal.
Wow.
Any other example, please?
Okay, I'm saying a service, an insurance company. You're an insurance agent. And you work for the city, or you're sorry, Jamie, I didn't mean.
You want to?
I used to. My whole point is, under that circumstance, then that person is going to have to abstain, or they'll have to abstain from any vote that they conceivably in the future could be. So if you got a doctor who comes up here and you come up and you're not one of my patients, but you could be a patient in the future. So am I going to have to abstain from every single person that comes up that I likely could be a patient or see their family? I mean,
I think there's a way that you could provide, I see your point. There is a way that we could provide some greater clarity there. I mean, It has, it's the difference between someone who is actually performing work on the project.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
like Bill's a great example. Bill has taken pictures for just about every child in Murfreesboro that has played baseball.
He's going to pick on Bill now, Jim.
No.
Any baseball fields,
Yeah,
though.
no. But what I'm saying is, if Bill comes up, if a family comes up to Bill that is a developer, and Bill has taken money from Shane McFarland because Bill took pictures of Shane McFarland's kids, so technically Bill profited off of. He may not be profiting off the development, but I gave him money because he took pictures of my kids. Could somebody file an ethics complaint against Bill?
Well, if I can chime in, I think the importance now is having an efficient and effective ethics commission.
Yes.
Going to.
But my point is, and I'm all for this. I mean,
Yeah.
I think any impropriety in public office is not good. But I do not want us to put in a policy that's going to weaponize to where anybody who gets mad at Bill is going to say, Bill took Shane and Ashley McFarland's wedding pictures. And there's no telling how much money they gave Bill. and Bill's voting on one of his projects. So I'm turning Bill into the Ethics Commission.
So here's-
I'm just saying, we need to be careful with that.
So here's the distinction from Councilmember Maxwell's scenario and, Councilmember Shacklet taking pictures of all the kids in.
Or wedding pictures.
Or what?
Or wedding pictures.
Or wedding pictures, is that in the code, the section that I just read to you, it says that you can't provide, that if you participated in the vote on the matter, you can't provide services for compensation directly related to the contract development and project or other matter that received approval
Right.
For a year.
for a year. So you can't go and paint, to be a subcontractor on that development project but, Bill, as a photographer, could go and take pictures of that applicant's children or their daughter's wedding or, whatever.
But Bill could not go take pictures of marketing in the development.
That would, yeah.
You see, what my point is that if you get granular on this, in the world that we live in now, it's like 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, that game that you.
I'm 3.
Is it 3? Yeah.
No,
So-
I'm 3.
Yeah, but my point is that we just need to be careful that what we're putting in place really pigeonholes to where, somebody could say, hey, like I am 100% against, honestly, I don't think an elected official should be doing business with a city if you're an elected official. I agree. I think if you're running for the city, that's just my opinion. I mean, like, I would never bid on a construction project in the city because just the way it looks.
Right.
Are you just worried about unnecessary persecution by the
Yes,
public, basically?
that's what I'm worried about.
I get that.
I just think the whole thing doesn't make sense to me. I mean, because, let's say I own a contracting business. I'm going to recuse myself when it's time to vote. If it passes anyway,
Just clean it up.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to go through all that, jumping all those ropes when it's going to pass anyway. I've never seen something not pass on this council. That anybody has
Oh,
recused.
they recused themselves.
Yeah.
If they recuse themselves.
That someone, let us know, and I've been on the council 14 years, and I've never seen anything not pass. So to me, I understand wanting to put it in writing, but it still doesn't make sense. I mean, we've shut the front door, but they just can come right back in the back door. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But hey, if the council wants to do this, and maybe I'm not understanding the details, but it's going to pass anyway, is what I'm saying. I've never seen it not pass.
I like overall the way, I just don't want this to turn into where you have frivolous things that are thrown out that you're wasting, especially at election season. I mean,
Right.
That you don't want to see, because now we live in the world that it's just insinuating something at someone,
Ruin their life.
then you've had an ethics complaint filed against you. Just the insinuation now is you're guilty until proven innocent. It's not innocent until proven guilty. And so that's the part where, I mean, you every time you open up your mailbox now, you pull out a mailer that you're like, well, that's not right, So putting in a mechanism where you're allowing that to happen inside the city, I don't think is, at least, who would want to serve on that ethics commission? I mean, that's the thing I'm sitting here thinking about is like, who do I start calling to say, hey, do you want to serve on the ethics commission? And people are going to be like, hell, no. I mean, heck no, I don't want to serve on that. So I do think that there are some unintended consequences that we just need to really discuss through. And what I'd recommend to council members before we really get into the discussion, maybe come up with some scenarios that like you can think of.
That's why I was asking.
And then let's have a discussion on, hey, what about this? What about that? I mean, I won't bring up photography again, Bill.
It's okay.
I see things like, hey, and I'm not saying this,
Go on, say it.
Well, I'm just saying like, hey, the mayor gets a sidewalk in front of his, we hear this all the time. The city councils who live on the north side of town, their roads get paved first. So
Hey, I read today on Facebook that where Notes Live was supposed to go, you're going to build 2,000 apartments.
I just read the same thing.
Yeah,
the
you
other day.
personally, Shane. I didn't know that. Did you?
no, that's news to me.
Yeah, same.
So,
You get a liquor store too.
I think transparency is always the right thing to do, and like Shane said earlier, I could agree. I don't think an elected official should ever be doing work for the city that they represent.
Stop it.
There could be some cleaning up for these scenarios to make sure it's a clarity issue, but I really appreciate the work you've done.
yeah, absolutely, Adam.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're talking about ethics and transparency and all those things, I mean, that is we all agree with that.
Right.
But, I do think the world we live in, I didn't know I was building 2,000 apartments on Medical Center Parkway.
2 hours ago, it broke news.
Breaking news.
News,
Why don't look at Facebook?
news to me. But what I'm saying is, Adam, I think we really need to go through and give us a little more time to read through everything and then maybe hit you with some internal questions about, and maybe that's the thing when you go at the next meeting, when you talk about this and present it, let's talk about specific instances and cases on how that process would flow through.
Okay. Do you want this, do you want me to bring this back on the 18th? Do you want,
Yeah, I think so.
I think
Yeah,
that's fine.
well, and the three, if I can just kind of summarize what I see, some of the three issues that I hear you all raising is, one is, and this really just applies to council members, not really to members of any other board or commission really, because in terms of doing work for the city, because the ones that would be deciding, like voting on that would be council members. And if there is, I'm hearing some concern about council members doing any work for the city. Is that something that you just want to prohibit?
I think we need to talk. That's a great
Okay.
discussion
I need to
point.
think on it.
I do
Okay,
too.
yeah, and it's not prohibited now, but if it's something,
Yeah.
it's something that could be,
Well, because like your example said, it's almost ripping off the taxpayers if we have to go with the second lowest bid, if the
Right.
lowest bid happened to be a local person, just because they were on, I mean, I don't
know
know that that's
Doug-
going to happen, but.
Doug Young, before he was on the council, supplied all the flooring for all the schools, but as soon as he was elected, he stopped that carte blanche after he was elected. He just didn't feel right doing it going forward. So he just, before he was elected, he did it. After he was elected, he did not.
That is the most selfless thing you can do. Gave up money to serve the people of Murfreesboro. That's beautiful.
Let's do.
the second thing is the issue about, if you voted for a project development contract or something like that, and then you provide services with respect to that project development contract as a subcontractor or something like that, how, if there needs to be greater clarity on that. And then I think there is the issue in terms of the Ethics Commission and to the mayor's concern about, well, who do we get to serve on this? And if it is,
Could the city judge serve on that commission?
I don't.
Or at least chair
Well,
it?
yeah, I mean, here, potentially, so the county commission has an ethics committee as opposed to an ethics commission.
Isn't there a committee made up of county commission members?
Yes, and the county treasurer, Ted Beatty, is the chair of the ethics committee. So, I mean, there could be, this issue exists with the county's ethics committee, is like, well, what if there's an ethics complaint filed against one of the members of the ethics committee?
I mean, Adam, but political opponents would never go after each other.
Not that I've seen.
Yeah. How you feeling about that, Jamie?
I mean, I don't, that never
It's
happens.
just so unrealistic.
Watch TV lately?
So unrealistic.
Well, and that's why the Ethics Commission has really, and I took this language for,
You watch the House Judiciary Committee?
Too many times.
Over the last 6 years?
Too many times. But I would say that there are requirements in the ordinance with respect to political activity by members of the Ethics Commission. And that is, I took that verbatim from a couple of different cities. So they are people they can be politically active in state matters, national matters. That's fine. They can be politically active in nonpartisan matters, but when it comes to local elections, they can't have they basically can't have any political activity other than going and vote, you know. So that's an attempt to address that issue, but your point's well taken.
Okay, so can you bring this to us on the 18th?
I can.
We'll be prepared to discuss and vote at that time.
Certainly.
All right. Any other business from staff? Adam, good work on everything.
Thank you, Adam.
I hope you know this, we say this all in jest, but we want to make sure we set up a structure that is fair.
I completely agree, and that's why I brought this to a workshop first, as opposed to just putting it on as an action item. I really did want, I was kind of working in a bubble on my own on this, and really do appreciate the input from council. And I really ultimately, I wrote it, it's proposal, it's really,
Sure.
it's your document, it's your policy that you're adopting.
All right, I think Sean, did you have some other business?
Yeah, I got something. I've gotten calls from 4 different county school board members about permit fees that we charge the schools to do things on school property that may be a hindrance of having different programs start at different schools. And then after I was looking into it with Darren and Kevin and Greg, we found out we charge our own schools permit fees too. I'd like to have a larger discussion about, should we be charging full fees, or should we just charge what our labor costs are? Maybe not charge any fees to educators. Just a larger discussion at an upcoming workshop about how the fee structure should be, again, for schools. I mean, as taxpayers, all we're doing is moving money from one pocket to the other pocket and not really solving anything.
Yes.
So I just think that's worth having a bigger discussion on.
Agreed.
Good point.
I'll also note on that too, is that at least with city schools, all of the real property is owned by the city anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So, and even if it's county property, every single one of us up here is a county taxpayer as well. So we're just going to take money out of this pocket and go, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, sorry.
I'll participate in the discussion, but I'll abstain from the vote since I'm married to a county school board member.
Well, and your wife is one of the ones that called me, so.
I am absolutely shocked.
She's not talking to you.
No, she said, I can't talk to Austin about this, so I'm calling you.
All right, Madeline?
Yes, I'm sure, I know I'm speaking on behalf of the council. Austin, we want to extend our condolences to you for the passing of your mother. I know she's going to be funeralized this afternoon, so safe travels and letting you know we're thinking about you.
Thank you. She was a great lady, and dementia sucks. You know, we've all lost parents, but she's in a much better place.
Yes, she is.
So thank you.
And Sean, if you have never in your life seen a miracle,
I have.
I've seen a miracle. I've gone from not even being able to eat, dress myself in a wheelchair and everything, and they said I wasn't going to make it. So I know I'm a miracle. But Lord knows, if you don't believe in miracles, Sean, God has shown you.
I definitely believe in him, and I appreciate all the prayers from everybody on this council, this work for the city, all through the community. My family's definitely felt the prayers the past 2 weeks. It's been a very rough 2 weeks.
For what she's been through, she looks great.
She does. I mean, just how she's recovered is amazing, and I mean, they didn't even think she'd be able to put pressure on her leg for 2-3 weeks, and she was walking on it in 2 days. It's a miracle.
And I was on the phone the other night, and she was still giving him a hard time. So she's back to her personality, too.
Great news.
All right. I think see Nate out there. We'll get some information next week, but we're hoping possibly the skate park could be opening in the next couple of weeks. Yep. And then Murfreesboro Little League, the 11-year-old team won the state last night, and then the 14-year-old team won the state 2 days before that. So we've got a lot of baseball teams who are going to be moving on to North Carolina, I think is where they're headed next. So lots of good stuff.
Nice.
All right, seeing no other business, we'll stand adjourned.